Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video, Brexit borders. The ones the Brexiteers don't like talking about. Now, I've discussed the way our trade borders have been left wide open for some time, allowing in dangerously unfit for consumption foods, which pose a serious risk to human health, especially for poorer people, as well as, of course, farming. But the media mostly covered it up over the last few years. But there are signs now that they are reporting more of the facts of our Brexit legacy. And so this is a chance for people to realise just how damaging leaving the EU was. But first, for daily political commentary, please hit the subscribe button to stay notified. So, we expect the Tory client journalists to cover for the Conservatives, no matter what the policy is, of course, which meant covering up the damage of Brexit, regardless of whether or not they were in favour of it, as many were anyway. But it was extremely galling to see the BBC, the public broadcaster, do so. In 2021, our first year outside the single market, I and others pointed out that the BBC carried out an interview at a fish market and edited out criticism of Brexit. Now, we know this because the live interview included it, of course, because it was live. They didn't know what they were going to say, but they clipped it out for future news reports. The following year, 2022, they were at it again, this time interviewing someone about farming. Again, footage heard the NFU president talking about a list of issues affecting farming, including Brexit, but later articles had that little bit edited out. But this one was pointed out as a very weird edit, because they hadn't just clipped out a sentence where they would just say, oh no, we just clipped, because we had to keep it to 30 seconds or some nonsense like that, right? They'd clipped out the middle of a sentence. They hadn't even taken out a whole sentence. It was just, oh no, let's just clip out that little bit of a sentence, making it very disjointed. So a blatant attempt to edit out negative references to Brexit, which is the furthest thing from journalistic integrity. So against this background of pretty obvious BBC suppression, you can imagine my surprise when I see a BBC article, I read it yesterday, it was out this week, which talks about how Brexit is preventing us stopping disease-ridden meat coming into the UK, as well as just animal products in general. And this article explains that we don't actually carry out checks at Dover, where the produce comes into the country, but 22 miles away at Sevington. This means that unscrupulous actors could easily unload between the two locations anything on the lorry which they don't want health inspectors checking. Now, none of this is news to most of us. I've been talking about it for a while. That's the real hole in our Brexit borders, and I've been saying that for some time, that we had absolutely zero checks never mind 22 miles away in Sevington. We had no checks at all taking place in 2021, 2022 or 2023. We do now have some checks taking place, but not at the level needed because we don't have the capacity, and not at the port of entry because we're an island and we can't build in the sea. I've discussed how in 2022, port officials carried out an experiment. So they carried out random checks in a 24-hour period, which covered 22 lorries coming into the country. 21 of them contained unfit for consumption food intended for humans. And never mind just diseased animals. There was meat which had maggots on it, raw animal products just in plastic bags, no temperature control, no labels. The raw meat was bundled in with foods which aren't cooked further, like cake and cheese. Absolute human health nightmare. And it was found in 21 out of 22 random lorry checks, highlighting the scale of this horror. And why? Because criminals will always take advantage of a gap in either the law or enforcement. At the time, we were not carrying out any standards checks. So what was to stop people loading up lorries with things that wouldn't pass a standards check? Nothing at all. Smuggling was rife. But this isn't just an atrocity against the British public from the past, orchestrated by Tories who cared more about arguments within their party than the lives of the public to whom they have a duty. We still aren't really properly protected now. We have some checks, but the system is very slow to react, according to experts. So they've been telling MPs, select committee of MPs, that despite the German government telling us that their exports might be affected by foot and mouth after an outbreak, it took our system a full week to do anything with that information. Parliament heard that we put restrictions on German animal products on January the 11th, but the border system wasn't updated for a full 7 days. and MPs were told that this was because of our post-Brexit regime. One expert, Helen Buckingham, said the problem there was no capability in the system to know what to do when something happens. So that's why the responses are too slow, because people don't know how to react. Essentially, so we have some checks in place now, but we don't have a robust system for what to do when the check turns something up that shouldn't be there, or in this case, where you've actually been given warnings by the exporting country. Germany was literally doing more to protect our border than we were. So the Environment Select Committee is now carrying out an inquiry into whether our system is working. Now, based on not just this latest example of failure, but the way I spent years watching the Tories half-arse their attempts at it, I would not be confident. I mean, at one point, they even gave Jacob Rees-Mogg a role. He kept banging on about using technology to solve these problems, but he thinks a fountain pen is the height of technological modernity. So we might start to see this being reported properly to the public, because I'm still marvelling at how I've read articles on the Select Committee hearing in multiple outlets, but it's the BBC who have been the most scathing, really. And I'm thinking, but these are the ones who just covered up Brexit completely a while ago. They're not only reporting now on the dangers, when they, as I say, covered them up in the past, they're even pointing out they made a Freedom of Information request to DEFRA, the government department in charge, about how many vehicles simply just don't turn up for those checks at Sevington, and were refused. Apparently the government think releasing the information could aid criminals looking for weak points in our border controls. But that basically answers the question, doesn't it? See, it is a matter of public knowledge that standards checks take place at a facility 22 miles away from the port of entry. That is a pretty big weakness, which if I know about it, international criminals know about it. If there were 0 lorries failing to attend for checks, that would not help criminals. It could only expose a weak point if the answer, if the government gave it, was that actually loads of lorries just don't turn up and nothing's really done about it. See, that would be a weakness that criminals could exploit. And so refusing to release the information is basically admission that this is what is happening. In fact, if you think about it, there are 3 massive weaknesses at Sevington. The first is it's nowhere near the port, and it's not like the route has CCTV all the way along. So what is there to stop a lorry driver who knows they're transporting contraband? Some lorry drivers may not be in the know, but if they know they're transporting something they shouldn't be, and they know that the worst that can happen when they come into Dover is they'll be told to go to Sevington 22 miles away to be checked. So what is to stop them going, well, that's fine, that's not a problem. Coming in, part way to Sevington, stopping, unloading into a van that's waiting for them at some lay-by not covered by cameras. What's to stop them? Second weakness is that there are regular reports of lorries. I hear it all the time. They're waiting. They go to Sevington. They're waiting. And then someone turns up and says, sorry, we haven't got enough staff. You'll just have to go. We can't do the check. So the lorry drivers are pissed off because they went out of their way and waited around for nothing. But it also means not all lorries which are targeted for checks are being checked. And the third weakness, highlighted in this BBC report, is that the government can give us no assurances that lorries directed to Sevington even end up going there. So you could be told to go to Sevington for checks, potentially just not bother, ignore the instruction without consequence. That is the impression the government are giving. Because if this practice were not possible, the government would want to say so, wouldn't they? I wonder if the BBC will be a bit more upfront about Brexit like this in future. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. If you've enjoyed the video, please click the like button and subscribe for further content. If you'd like to support the channel further, you can click the join button for memberships. Thanks for watching, and until next time, I'll see you later.